some basic facts up to this date. That is that in 22 out of 23 decisions, administrative judges have found that Starbucks has committed more than 230 federal labor law violations. They are in violation of the law more than 230 times. They've lost 22 of 23 cases to this moment. And that includes 30 different unlawful charges so far. We're going to see that number keep rising and rising. The NLRB has issued 82 additional complaints against Starbucks awaiting disposition by administrative judges, encompassing about 240 charges alleging over 1,350 violations, including more than 70 discharges so far. Starbucks Work United is a union drive that's taken over labor movement by storm. It is the biggest new form of organizing in the United States of America right now, and it's for the forefront of changing the service industry into jobs that are good paying jobs, the same way that you had to fight to make, say, working in a plant, in industry, a good job. It wasn't a good job until workers fought for it. And hopefully, with Starbucks Work United taking the forefront here, we begin to see service industry become a good middle class job, help allow people to care for their families in a safe, healthy working environment. Since December 2021, over 9,000 workers, 350 Starbucks stores in 38 states and the District of Columbia have successfully unionized. Starbucks workers have formed more new unions at a single company than any campaign in 21st century so far. Like I said, it's wonderful and incredibly, really makes, it can be kind of bleak out there. And this sort of work, this sort of unionizing, this sort of activity, this sort of organizing really helps bring spirit that yes, change can be achieved, it can be new, it can be exciting, and it can be relatively fast moving, you know. And in contrast to different decades, while this is hard, we aren't being shot at over mountains in West Virginia. So we have that to look forward to, even if it is definitely hard at the moment. Sorry, I just watched it. The panel we have here today, service workers from Houston's 3 United stores. Thank you. Can I get a round of applause for our folks here today? They include 2 members who were fired by Starbucks for their union organizing, and the process of unfair labor practice hearings being heard by the National Labor Relations Board. Like I said, those numbers that we've heard about how they keep losing all their cases, that them being Starbucks keep losing all their cases because they keep committing violations of the law, crime, it's going to keep going up, and that makes it very hard to work in stores, to work at organizing. But it's through these actions, through this sacrifice, through this hard work, that change happens, and it is frustrating and slow, but it is the beginning of something new, and it really means a lot. And I have to pass to our wonderful panel who done so much, worked so hard. Thank you so much, and I pass it to you guys. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rob Block, he, him. I'm a rank and file member of the Houston Professional Firefighters Association, and going to be moderating the panel this evening. I want to thank Shaw for jumping in to give that introduction. Mark Brady from IATSE was planning to be here and give the introduction, had an emergency come up, and is a person who had very nice things to say about Josh and his contributions to the work of IATSE. And just last thing I'd say before we kick off the panel is a year ago we were here celebrating the first Starbucks Union victory, and we really appreciate the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers for opening up this big space for us and to have this event. So let's go down the line, and would love to ask everyone to introduce yourself by your name, pronouns, and your store. I don't remember. Did I say my pronouns? Okay.
Hi, I'm Emily Petrie. I use she, her. I'm from the Kingwood location at Rock Creek in 59.
Hi, I'm Carson Keaton, and I'm from the Kinnan and Bainbridge Medical Plaza store.
I'm Matt, she, her, and I am also from the Bannon and Cambridge Medical Plaza.
Josh DeLeon, he, him, and from the Shepherd and Herald store.
I'm Alan, she, her, and I'm from the South Shepherd and Herald store as well.
So why don't we kick off with briefly, everyone, why did you decide you wanted to join or organize a union at your store?
I think that we were just getting to a point where we saw too much inaction, for things that we needed to do to like maintain health and safety of our employees. The biggest catalyst to everything was that we had a black mold problem that had been festering for like probably about 2 years, since long before I started at that store. And that was the big thing that like got us together on everything, amongst litany of other issues that we needed to tackle that we could only do by coming together. We did eventually get the black mold problem solved, by the way. It happened the day after the we unionized, so that was great.
Yeah, so before I was at the store I'm at now with Matt, I was actually in a store in Denton that I helped you guys kind of earlier on back in like March of 2022. It was just a really terrifying time. It was because our coworkers, we lived in a little like kind of college town where people relied on that job to pay their bills and make their living. And people were getting like 25 hours or something, getting 10. My coworker told me a story about how they came up just $1 short of rent and had to ask their friend to lend them $1 because Starbucks was cutting their hours so much. We had partners who weren't able to claim their medical benefits because their hours were being cut too much. And, you know, we just knew that like something had to change. So we decided to send an email to Starbucks Workers United and just see what happened. Even though it was kind of early on, there weren't a lot of stores yet, we didn't even know if we'd get a response. But it really, really helped. It was so gratifying to see.
I, as of this month, actually have been with the company for 8 years, and over those 8 years, I have too many reasons to list on as to why I'm part of this movement. But some of the biggest things that really pushed me for it was the constant need for issues to be addressed, and the channels in which like the company claims they hear us and that we're partners have failed us. I've seen way too many people fall through the cracks in similar ways to what Carson said, including myself. My pay was straight up just wrong for several years, and I was being told by the district manager that it would get fixed. Just wait for our next meeting, just wait for the next round of raises, I'll make it right, we'll fix this, we'll give you back pay, we'll give you an even higher raise to fix it, and it literally, like, I never saw any of that. So that was that last final push for me.
I don't know, other than seeing the success, I guess, of the first stores from Buffalo that started organizing. I don't know, I guess outside of Starbucks, probably the main things that kind of pushed me were, I don't know, I mean, a year and a half into the pandemic and just seeing what had happened, I guess, during that time period and how working conditions were shifting, the cost of living was going up, and then direct action just felt like a more, I don't know, purposeful endeavor, especially after supporting Bernie for 2 cycles and seeing what happened on Super Tuesday in 2020. I thought, oh, I guess I don't know how electoral politics works. And yeah, the year and a half into the pandemic, it just felt more important to, I don't know, do something more directly related to my day-to-day life.
Yeah, so I guess for me, my answer is a little bit more like broad, I guess, but more so just I know workers like deserve respect, and the company just disrespects their workers and shows that they don't care about them on a daily basis in so many different ways. And so that was kind of, I'm like, okay, yeah, like let's help people out, let's make this right and do that.
Thank y'all. So next is, do you have a funny or interesting thing that you learned about unions, unfair labor practices, company rules or policies since you've started participating in this organizing process? And let's go with the opposite way this time.
Yes. So, once upon a time, little Madeline wanted to be a meteorologist. I've since learned that there is a union for meteorologists, and I thought that was really sick.
If anything, yeah. Stand out of my mind right now.
Are we talking general union?
We're talking.
What? I don't even remember. What the question is.
Funny or interesting things to learn about unions or unfair labor.
I mean, the funniest part of what I've learned is how many rights we have that they like died from us. I mean, that's been pretty hilarious to realize how much there actually is that we would never have known if we didn't go down this route. It's a different kind of funny, but.
No, that's exactly it. I did not know how many unfair labor practices like one company could rack up. Madeline has taken the burden of talking to the lawyers, which I'm thankful for, but I swear, every time I open with her, I come in and she's telling me about a new like unfair labor practice that we're writing up.
Super on the same page with that, we're always like, oh, okay, they said what to you? Let's talk to our lawyer about that. I also the other day, something that I've never noticed as long, like it's never just really like clicked with me and like I've become like blind to it, but like everywhere that I've ever worked has an NLRB poster in the back of the house. And like it lists out things that like your employer is not allowed to do. And like I've worked in several different like food service places. I worked in retail, and it's like, oh wow, I can think of so many things in all of these jobs that it's like, oh, they've just been doing that the whole time. Like we could have unionized Pizza Hut, like that would have been great. But yeah.
Awesome. So thank you all for that. We're now going to sort of go chronologically through the organizing efforts of each of the stores here. So Madeline, Josh, y'all from South Sheridan have South Shepherd and Harold. I guess let's start with Josh. Could you talk about how long you worked for Starbucks and how long it was at that store?
Yeah, I worked at Starbucks, I guess, well, kind of leads into the next question, but before I left, or was no longer working for Starbucks. It was, I think, 2 months shy of 9 years, and then, about 2.5 years at that store specifically.
Can you talk about what led up to you no longer work there? So like, can you talk about what led to you no longer working for Starbucks?
Yes, about 4 or 5 days before our election ballot count, I was fired. It was kind of a month-long process before that of interrogation from management, pulling together whatever they could to, create some sort of reason for firing me. And it was very loosely tied together, but essentially at the claim was stolen time theft, basically, but of about 45 minutes over the course of like 4 days, which did not hold merit. Yeah, but I have evidence I've sent to the lawyers. And it was also very clearly targeted directly at me. The reasons it's not the sort of attention that management would ever give to one single person ever in that way.
For folks that aren't familiar with how the unfair labor process works, like Shaw mentioned in the introduction, that of the 23 cases that have been heard, Starbucks has been found to have violated people's rights in 22 of them. So what kind of recourse do you have for being fired?
I think the details of it aren't completely public knowledge, but I think it is understood, like the NLRB has found merit in my case specifically, that that Starbucks did unlawfully fire me, or that they did break the law and firing me, and the reasons, the steps they took in that process. So there is merit in that, found by the NLRB, which will then move forward to case hearing, which I think mine is now combined with a few other, I think it might be combined with your case now too, for other fire workers. I think us two and one other person would have a combined case that will go before a judge.
Gotcha. And then last question for you, Josh. What kind of support have you, did you get any support after being fired from Starbucks?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so like a few days after I was fired, kind of a hectic week, but 5 days later, we were in this room, ready for the ballot count. And I mean, it was, even from the time we shared our letter and went public with our election, there's huge support locally from local unions, from DSA members. I was offered, a job whenever during the election, the ballot count here, and they're like, hey, we'll find a place for you, you don't have to not have a job, so, I mean, there was definitely plenty of support. Yeah, and I mean, currently, I think there was someone I met at a strike outside Starbucks. I am now currently working with the, I think you mentioned before, IATSE, with the state unions union.
They like you, they have you this thing. And so, Madeline, can you talk a little bit about what types of collective actions did y'all do at Shepherd and Harold?
For sure. So that's a lie. I think we had said it before our election. But our first major, first time we went on strike actually was after Josh was fired. We were very quick to plan it. Literally everyone in the store knew that it was very clear he was targeted. No one agreed with it. And it was very exciting. I think quite a few people were nervous for our first strike. I know I've never participated in a strike prior to that. And the sort of energy we gained from it, it really boosted our morale after seeing Josh get fired and kind of kept our energy going for the election. And then let's see, after that, we also participated in Red Cup Rebellion. So that took place on Red Cup Day, which is a very, very profitable day for Starbucks. I think we checked our sales and it probably cost them, I think it was a couple $1,000s. So for us, that was a win for them to lose money. It was very fun too. The union came out with fun, beanies, cups. It was pretty big on social media and over 100 stores participated. So it was our biggest national collective action moment that had happened thus far. Let's see, we also did a benefit show in April where we raised a little over $2,000 for the coworker fund, which helps workers who were fired or organizing at Starbucks. And I would say that was a pretty big success. It was pretty fun. And then we went on another strike after I was fired, and that was also a good time.
Well, I'm glad there's a silver lining to that. Can you talk some about what changes, if any, happened at y'all's store after Josh being fired?
For sure. So one of the most significant changes that affected how much money people were making, and they have been doing this at any store really that has supported unionizing, or I feel like they could just get a whiff of maybe they support it, they'll cut hours back. At working at Starbucks, you do not have guaranteed hours. There's no such thing as full time. So you can have in a month, you can work 2 weeks at 10 hours, and then you can work 2 other weeks at 15 hours, or the next month you could work 25 hours a week. It fluctuates. And it's really hard to develop a consistent financial lifestyle off of inconsistent hours, and it also affects whether or not you get your benefits. At our store, they basically made it to where we opened later and closed earlier. And they said it was for financial reasons, even though we were doing better financially this year than we were the year prior. And they started at a 30-minute increment in the morning, and then it progressed to, okay, now we're gonna open at this time. And now that essentially everyone that was a part of the union at the store is gone, they've now reverted the hours back to what they were pre-unionizing, of course. whatchamacallit, we were also told that we could not wear our union pins. And there was a pretty big, battle, for lack of a better word, between, our upper management and partners at the store, who were bringing Starbucks literature to the manager saying, we can wear this, and we're saying, and then, long story short, we were allowed to wear our pins after that moment. Starbucks told us that we could not talk to media, outside of work even without Starbucks permission, which was very, very interesting. I did not know that Starbucks could control my life whenever I clock out, but they can, apparently. Let's see. Oh, they also dramatically understaffed our store. They started skeleton staffing, so we were able to literally survive our peak hours and then basically give really bad handoffs to the next crew because there's not enough people to replenish, clean, follow basic health and safety standards that are required. That's some of the things.
I was hoping to have some good things, but those are all.
Oh, sorry.
So thank y'all for sharing about Shepherd and Harold, first union store in Houston. We're gonna talk a little bit, Emily, about Kingwood. So, Emily, can you tell us about the consensus or the 5-acre store when unionizing first came up as an idea?
So I think it was, so the vibe as far as like pre-conversation, everybody was like a bit burned out. I think once we started talking about things, like I actually wrote a letter to my staff about this a while back. I should have brought that with me to talk about that today, but like after we had started conversations about organizing and like gotten into our card signing phase and all that, we like came together so much more closely, like as a community within our store. Like we were very much like divided between morning and night crew before that. And then once we were like, like this is a thing that we can do, that like there's a silver lining, like there's hope that we can make things better. Like this is what we want to try to do. We want to try to get us paid more. We want to try to get us more consistent staffing. We want to try to make sure that like everybody is secure in the benefits that they're going to get. They don't have to worry about whether or not they're going to be able to keep going to school for the rest of the semester. We like started talking with people in morning crew, and like we actually like developed an in-store community, and we were always talking about how like, Starbucks' mission statement has always like prided themselves on like developing community, building community, and we were like, we've been so understaffed for so long that like we haven't been able to do that. But then like we started, getting into contact with like people from DSA, like people in the firefighters union. Like we have people coming in to like support us with these sip-ins and everything. It's like, hey, well, look at that. Like we're engaging the community, we're building community, we're getting to do the thing that is part of the reason that a lot of us like have any sort of drive to work in customer service in the first place. So it started getting a lot better, like once we started having organized conversations.
That's awesome. So can you talk about some of the collective actions that union stores taking?
So we had 2 strikes, or 2 one-day strikes. We had, oh my gosh, let's see, the first one that we did was on, I can't remember the date now. It was the only mid-shift that I personally ever worked. But I remember I was there on the turnover, and then whenever I was going to leave the store, like we had a staff that there was only 3 people in the store at the time, and one of them was going to be leaving 2 hours. Nobody's lunches had gotten to be run or anything. Like called to me like, hey, we need some extra people here. We need to like close something down for a little bit so we can handle this. And they were like, no, you can do it. And everybody was like, they're like, I just want to quit right now. It's like, okay, if y'all are thinking about quitting, let's do something else instead. So we went on strike that day. I was like, okay, like I'm about to leave, I have something I have to go do, I'll be back in an hour. Came back with, picket signs and everything, and we stayed out on the patio until close. Some of the people who were off that day came in to come support us, so it's like, we could have had people come in. They were willing to come up to the store and, that one was good. That was our first strike, and it was like really, really good turnout. We had somebody from DSA drive 45 minutes to come support us that day. We had another strike recently in these past couple of months where they had falsified like time, like punch times for one of our union employees. It's like, oh, you were late by like 15 minutes this day, 27 minutes this day, 8 minutes this day, and we like went back into her time card and it's like, oh, well, you've never been late by more than 5 minutes, and that's the grace period, so I don't know why this is happening. We're not gonna take this lying down, let's go do something about it. So we had our vote on the board at that moment, it all worked out. We've also we engaged with the Big Star Bar event for the coworker fund. And my wife actually was fired from Starbucks after 6 years because they started they had like one conversation on the floor about like trying to get people together to like gauge interest in unionizing, and then their store manager and district manager caught wind of that, held like a 5-month-long targeted harassment campaign against them in store before eventually firing them for missing digital temperature logs. Yeah, so we went out a couple days after that happened. I think it was about a week after that happened, and we did an info ticket, drove a bunch of customers away, and I think a lot of the organizing committee for Rock Creek ended up showing up to that too. So yeah, we've been pretty militant, I think.
I went to the second strike you mentioned, I went to, it was very, very hot.
Yeah.
And y'all were out there in the blazing heat, convincing people to not get a frappuccino or whatever, to go somewhere else. And then my last question was supposed to be about your wife, so.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit more about that, absolutely, yeah. So we've, basically, all that they've been dealing with is like, they started at Rock Creek, so our store opened up, it's probably going on 4 years, maybe 3 years ago now, and they were working in 3 different stores in our district, because the store I initially started at was also opening at the same time. So they were going to that store to train people and opening up the store that we are working at right now. They've been company for 6 years, lawless disciplinary record in that time, and they moved into the store whenever we ended up moving. It was like closer to our house. So first, like 4 months, everything was fine. We win our election. They know that we're in a relationship. So I think our store manager actually trained the store manager at their new store. Events unfold, then what had been like a really healthy relationship between shift supervisor and store manager turned into, okay, well now we're leaving notes for every single one of your closes where other employees are misgendering you, and we're saying that we'll have a conversation about it, but that's never happening. Just all of this to like make this work life like as miserable as possible before finally just being like, okay, well, you've done this one thing, Starbucks has decided to escalate this, and this is your notice of separation. But we've been fighting that legally for the past couple months, since the end of June now. Yeah, it's been a tough little fight, but Starbucks has not been putting too much effort into the legal recourse of this, so I think it's gonna be an easy one once things are done.
We'll try to be patient, hard though. So we're gonna phase into talking about Cambridge Companion. So Carson, what ideas or experiences did you bring from Denton during the webinar?
Right. Yeah, I remember in Denton, it was really early on in the process and not many people knew a lot about how Starbucks Workers United worked. And I was just a little college age Texas worker in one of the most like pro or anti-union states, I guess I should say, in the country. Like, it seemed really gargantuan and terrifying. Like, I didn't know what Starbucks Workers United was. I didn't know if I was gonna get a response. And it's not until you actually go through the process that you realize that it really is actually like attainable and possible for people to do, even here in Texas. And I think coming to the Med Center, the very first day, like my very first shift at the Med Center, I didn't know anyone obviously because I had just transferred in. All I knew was Mad was a shift organizer, and she just like walks up to me while I'm in the back, and she's like, "Hey, I heard you unionize at Den. What's up with that?" I was like, "What? I don't know nothing about anything." but luckily, she was actually genuinely interested, but so I think it was kind of cool, actually. I feel like I know a guy, which felt cool. So being able to set up a meeting, people that I knew, and to tell people at the store how, demystify it, how not scary and attainable it actually is, I think made it'll feel a lot more possible that we could do it at this store too.
That's exciting. So Mike, could you talk some about, has there been any retaliation against you or other folks at your store, since y'all went public?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think it was pretty clear early on that the retaliation was going to be aimed at both me and Carson more than others. Obviously, because Carson's experience, which you should give yourself more credit for, just saying, definitely brought a whole sense of confidence to our organizing. And then me, because I was closely tied to their store, we're a couple, so they knew that. A little bit. So we knew that as soon as they started organizing, my store manager was very aware of what was happening over there and was very aware that we are a couple, and was prepared to retaliate against me before we even started our process. So the retaliation in our store that was directed like most closely to me was the store manager immediately hired 2 outside hire shift supervisors who are her friends, confirmed, with availability in one of them had availability only inside of my availability and kicked me directly out of 2 of my shifts. One, it is wild to hire someone with her availability was open to 9 a.m. Monday and Wednesday, and she could also open on Saturdays. I mean, we don't do that. We don't hire people, shift supervisors, especially for that availability. So kicking me out of 2 of my opening shifts, very, very clearly intentional. But also she had just gone on, like, she was very clear that she was not going to be hiring any outside shift supervisors after last summer, because we had done a couple that did not go well at all. So it's just absurd that she hired 2 at the same time, right after we unionized, that she also happens to be like decade-long friendships with. So that took my hours down from averaging 30 to 35 to 22. Which would, obviously she was trying to get me to either need to quit or act out and get fired. But in general, our store did see a huge reduction in hours. They hired a ton of partners to try to dilute our vote and also dilute our hours. A couple of people were, and one person did lose benefits. A couple of people were very dangerously close to losing benefits. But that was the main theme of our like immediate retaliation. Oh, and my write-up. In 8 years, I have never been written up for anything. I am a little bit of a perfectionist. I've never been late except for one time when I witnessed a crime and I was with the police and had to give them my statement. But I got written up for someone else being late multiple times on my shift, and I didn't leave a formal note to say, in an iPad system that was new. We'd never been told to leave notes about it before, but I was written up for not leaving a formal note. No other shift supervisor ever left notes about anyone ever being late, never got written up for it. And actually, we have a new store manager now. And a couple of weeks ago, at a shift supervisor meeting, because I've been obnoxiously leaving notes anytime anyone is late, I'm like, so-and-so called and said that they were in the elevator and they were 30 seconds late. Just because like they're not in trouble for it, but just to make my point. So I don't know, I like to make my point. Anyway. But he told me to stop doing that and told me that it's actually not policy, it was never policy. And I made a comment about how like, oh, that was just made up to write me out. And he agreed. Like, yeah. So yeah, you know. No retaliation.
I'm happy to hear that, but the way you tell the story is pretty great. So for either of y'all, both of y'all, can you talk some about some of the collective actions that y'all have taken in your store and any changes that resulted?
Yeah, we have done a lot of stuff recently. Do you want to talk about the first day?
Yeah, the first strike, a big reason was because our AC had been broken for like over a month. In the middle of the summer, it was regularly 80 to 85 degrees within the store. And we were begging basically on our knees to like, please fix the AC. Partners were like dehydrated, they were getting headaches. People had to like sit down a couple times because it was like getting so bad, you know, it's like 105 degrees outside and then you step inside your store and you don't stop sweating for the rest of the shift for like a month. So we finally decided to take collective action and go on our first strike. And it was so amazing. We told like all of our regulars and got them to stay away. We maybe told too many regulars they were ready the next day. They had a full staff there. But it was on our just about our busiest morning in the week, and the traffic was like half of what it normally was. And within like a week later, they brought in these 2 industrial grade, like huge fans that were going like 60. Yeah, now it's full, it's great. Well, you know, within a week, like our strike had already paid off. Like the very first time we took collective action, it was great.
So that success did inspire us into a second strike very recently. And I think a lot of what encouraged us to go ahead and take this action was the response of customers caring and asking. I mean, it was really cool the first strike to like engage with all of our customers, tell them what's going on in like an environment where you're not like looking around the corner to see if your boss is listening. And to have a lot of you guys out there supporting us and just showing, I mean, because that was our first strike. A lot of our coworkers have never been a part of something like that before. So for them to see that like other people cared, and that our customers cared, really like, I mean, immediately everyone was like, this again. But staffing has been absolutely ridiculous. And I think Madeline mentioned kind of like trying to like torture us out, by just skeleton staffing, making it so that you can't possibly do anything but like bring in money. We've been bringing in pretty, I mean, I wouldn't say we're like record high sales right now, but we're bringing in a lot of money, but we are not, performing very well. Our customers are waiting like 30 to 55 minutes, for their orders. And then we are just like, everyone is doing a job of 3 different people at any given time, throughout the entire day. And for a really long time, they weren't hiring, and I truly believe that they were just trying to see how many of us will quit and how much of a fresh team they could pull in. But it has been working. I mean, we have had a couple of people leave, but, I mean, I feel like this will go wrong. So, this last strike was for the, buy one, get one deals that they've been adding to. Yeah, I mean, without like scheduling it in time for the schedules to match these deals, they're adding these buy one, get ones to bring in business, but not getting any support for that. So after a couple of weeks of that happening, we made it very clear that we wanted better staffing for the next one, didn't get it, so we decided we're just not going to be there then. So we went on a very last minute, second strike, and this time they did not expect it, no one knew. And we kept them closed for, I think, like 3 or 4 hours, which was really, really cool. I mean, so that was like when we had the first buy one, get one deal that they were doing. Now we have a second buy one, get one deal. And this week it was staffed beautifully. Today so the day that we were on strike saying like, no, we won't do this anymore. During the beginning of the deal, when it's at its busiest, we had, I think it was 4 people scheduled and 3 of them were newer people. It was you and a bunch of new people. And they ended up staffing the store by the afternoon with a bunch of store managers. And I think they had like 8 people working it, because that's what it would take. And then today we had 7 people on the floor, whatever, doing it. So, I mean, we almost doubled what they would schedule us, and they would not have done that if they weren't in fear of how we would, act.
Yeah, we scared our store manager pretty good. He wakes up at like 4 a.m. every day now just to make sure that we've clocked in.
That's amazing. So I really appreciate learning about what's going on in everybody's store. There's a lot of things that are very similar in terms of how management is reacting to y'all's unionizing, and so I think it's fantastic that we have 3 union stores in Houston, and it's part of this national campaign. And so wanted to sort of talk a little bit about some of the national efforts to try to get to having a contract and other stuff that Starbucks is doing. So some of the things that y'all thought would be important to talk about is there was a bus tour in Josh, can you tell us about the bus tour?
Yeah, there was I think it started in June. It was a 13-city, like nationwide bus tour. It was organized and, handled by either current Starbucks workers, union organizers, or previous workers here. But anyways, it was organized by union workers and union organizers. But basically it was went across the nation. I think its main goal was to essentially, in those local areas in the cities that they went to gather local Starbucks workers, either from union stores or, in the process of organizing to go to Starbucks headquarters in those cities and get outside of those. I think, but I mean, there was a ton of support also to get, the general public also as customers involved and knowing what's going on at their local Starbucks. I think it also kind of coincided whenever they went to the West Coast and participated with, I think, a writers union, or I think there was a couple other union organizations that kind of picketed with them on the West Coast.
That's awesome. Emily, I've got you for telling us stuff about Labor Day.
Labor Day, I don't think nationally we did like a whole lot of stuff. I know, several cities ended up, joining in a bunch of Labor Day parades. So we didn't get to do that out here from my knowledge. I don't know if you guys did, but what we ended up doing, at our restaurant King was we, had a sit-in that day. It was very successful and it was very fun. A lot of community allies, out to support. We got to make some signs to hold into the window to ask our management to make a contract with us to bargain, but, yeah, it was a good day of community.
Houston doesn't have a Labor Day parade that I know of. Room for improvement. So I've also got here September 14th. What went down that day?
Customer Day of Action, the second one of what will continue on. Which is a super cool new thing that we're focused on to engage, customers, and allies in what is going on. So I think it was like 1,200 people for this last one, all over the nation went to, or like, I guess, adopted stores, non-union stores, to go stand in front of and engage with customers. So these people come going out there, some of which I'm looking at right now, went, or who are friends or customers or labor allies in general, went and stood in front of stores and had conversations with customers, and had people sign the no, I would say backwards, no contract, no copy petition, talk to people about the union busting that's been going on, and just make sure that people who are coming into these stores and giving Starbucks money every day know what's going on, and continue that conversation. So on Starbucks Workers Union's website, there is a tab for adopting a store. And when you sign up for that, you'll find out more about upcoming future ones that are similar to that. So super fun.
I was part of a crew that adopted the Starbucks about 3 blocks down from your Starbucks and was shocked that every single customer I talked to coming out of the Starbucks was not aware that Starbucks is union busting. And many of them signed the petition, but like, for us that are in this world of being aware that this is like one of the biggest union waves in our lifetimes, there are a lot of people that are not aware that Starbucks is.
Especially in the med center, with lots of nurses and people that you would make the assumption would be a little more engaged with the labor happenings. And we learned that during our strike. A lot of people were like, wait, what are you doing? What is this? So days like the 14th were really important. So.
All right, so it's sort of, it is important because if people don't know this is going on, it's, we've got some work to do. And so last, stuff, there have been hearings in Seattle. About those.
Yeah, so this is yet again unprecedented. And the central goal of these hearings, what's going on, it's with NLRB, Starbucks, with CWU in Seattle. And the goal is to secure a federal order for Starbucks to come to the table and bargain with us. One of the big obstacles that has been going on is Starbucks refuses to do hybrid bargaining. So you would think that would be beneficial because you're getting more workers involved and you care about your workers, right? However, no. So essentially anytime a union has been, advocating for, people to join on Zoom because they also don't really approve a request off to bargain. So that's been one of the reasons. Another is we want a national or regional bargaining order. So right now it's on a store by store basis, and that's been a huge obstacle, just because it relies heavily on the workers who have, this knowledge of like bargaining for your rights as a worker, which they don't teach you in school much about that. it's just another way for Starbucks to draw the process out, make things longer, is to be, okay, we're gonna do it, on an individual basis. So we want to, make them not do that. And this is also kind of related to, some stuff that happened earlier in the summer in Seattle. The court ruled against Starbucks for multiple reasons, but a couple of them were telling workers that were subpoenaed to the Seattle hearing that they could not attend the hearing and testify, they didn't get their shift covered. So Starbucks is like, okay, yeah, we're, above the law again. That was obviously, they said, you can't do that. They were prohibiting union activities on paid company time. So there was a barista who, she was, I believe, on her 10-minute break, that's a paid break, and she was simply just handing out pens to customers and workers, and Starbucks, wrote her up for that. They also wouldn't let unionized baristas in Seattle help out at the Starbucks. I can't remember if it was on Washington University's campus or near the campus during football season, so obviously you're gonna get an influx of traffic, and Starbucks has the ability to borrow partners to stores to help out in situations like that, and they were saying no. So not only were the unionized baristas affected, but also the non-unionized baristas. Yeah, that's that.
And how long ago was that? That was,
Oh, the hearing was Tuesday.
so this is happening like right
Oh, yeah, real time.
And then, so we're getting close to wrapping up, but how can people in this room, people on Zoom, that people want to support this, how can people help?
For sure. So kind of tying into what Matt mentioned, if you go to the Starbucks Workers United, I was gonna say Instagram page, not Instagram page, their actual website, like the real website. They have a allies page, and so it will update with different events that are occurring, but also it gives you the option, like she mentioned, to sign up for adopt a store opportunities. And it also shows you like a physical map of things going on, which I think is really cool, because like, let's say you're taking a vacay somewhere, you can just like, I don't know, help out on your vacation and go on strike with like a random Starbucks store. Like, that's cool. And then also, donating to the coworker fund. So the coworker fund helps out workers like Josh, myself, like people who have been fired for organizing their workplaces. Because you can't guarantee that you're going to secure a job, 2 days after you're fired. Bills happen fast, emergencies happen. Those things help those workers to not only continue, just functioning and living, but also, have time to figure out what are you going to do, all sorts of stuff like that. And that's what our benefits show. All that money that went directly to the coworker fund, and they do it as soon as the pot fills up. They submit applications, people apply. It's not just going to, like random folks. What else did I add? Oh, you can sign up for the newsletter. It doesn't come out on like a scheduled basis. It's more so like when they have a lot of information, they'll send it out. It's by email. And then in general, I would just check out social media. I would say the union's pretty big on Twitter. I think that's like the most active platform. And there's a lot of different accounts for different unionized stores, depending on what area you're from, that you can keep up to date with what's going on. And, oh, yeah, lastly, tomorrow at the Sasha Fern Herald store at 9 in the morning, 7 to 9, whoa. We're having a anniversary step-in. And so we're just asking if anyone is able to, before they go into work, stop by, order a drink or some breakfast, and use the name Union Strong, Union Proud, anything that shows solidarity to the workers and draws attention to the movement and makes them aware of that store, just because the whole union drive there has been almost just completely depleted over the last year. And there'll be coloring pages. Who doesn't love to color? So.
That's a great comprehensive list of things people can should be doing. So let's, as we close out, we're gonna do another sort of pass the mic this way. Everybody, tell us if you could give advice to a new organizer, whether they're at Starbucks or somewhere else. Well, no, let's focus on Starbucks. And someone who works for Starbucks is thinking about Starbucks Workers United. What kind of advice would you give to them about organizing?
I would just tell them, like, if you're interested, you're right. It is as easy it is for, people who are in, whether it's unions, different, action groups, different labor communities, to be like, oh yeah, of course you want to unionize. Not everyone, especially in Texas, is like really aware of like what that entails, and it's very difficult whenever you show interest at your job and you go in and every single day you're being told by your superiors, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. Even if you know you're right, it's hard. So my advice would just be like, you're right. You deserve respect. Like it's the bare minimum.
Yeah, I guess the advice I would say is, I mean, depending on where you're at with your coworkers, I mean, if it's, you haven't really talked to your coworkers at all, but you've been keeping up to date with what's going on within Starbucks Workers United and all of that, and you're excited to talk to your coworkers about it. Just starting that conversation of, talking about the realities of whatever your working conditions are within your store. Talk to your coworkers about, the hours you're like getting, or how often things are getting fixed. I mean, like appliances breaking down, staffing and scheduling, all of that. Just having those conversations with your coworkers before you ever even mention union, and likely someone else is going to mention it before you do. That's a good way to find out, who's interested, who's on board, who doesn't, who's maybe wants to know more about that, but doesn't understand the full process. So, and then also outside of that, reach out to Starbucks Workers United, reach out to any other stores locally to you in the city. There's plenty of support outside of your own store and outside of your own, whether online or offline. There's plenty of support around you.
I think the biggest thing for me is that you're gonna feel like you should be like really scared and really afraid. They're gonna make you feel like talking about a union is really scary. And it did feel really scary. But like Starbucks is like a spider, and you feel like you're supposed to be scared of them, but they're more scared of you. Because they are. And I mean, it shows in the way that they react to us, doing what we do. They know that we're right, but they know they have to fight it. So that's why it feels like you might be doing something wrong. That's why it might feel like, they can squash us. They cannot, and hopefully we'll squash them. Yeah. But then also, just kind of with what Josh was saying, talking to your coworkers, no matter what stage you're in, is the most important part.
I agree. I think the big thing is definitely that labor union. It sounds like a really big, scary word almost to try to like bring to life, to like make a real thing. But it really is more attainable and possible than I think most people realize.
I think the advice that I would give is to, if you're at the point where you're gauging interest, like if you're even interested, contact Starbucks Workers United first and foremost, because everything gets a lot easier after you have help getting into the process. But once you're in it, like the way to be successful in, in forming the union or even just solving problems together at work is to turn your workplace into like a community of care. You have to engage with your coworkers beyond just the workplace, beyond just the things that you're doing there. You already have something in common in that you do the same work every day. Our Starbucks coworker parties are us just complaining about the things that we have to do at Starbucks for the past years before getting to the union. So let's complain about it some more, but that will really open the door to like being able to not only talk about these things together and approach them together, but to have people that you're working with that now you're fighting for someone other than just yourself. Now you're fighting for the people around you who you care about, who you don't want to see squashed by this multi-billion-dollar company. So
Part two.
Sorry. I know we're trying to wrap up, but just because a couple people have mentioned it about the feeling of it being scary organizing or, you know, talking to your coworkers about a union. Just remember, I mean, I'm sure everyone in this room already knows this, but just remember like that is 100% by design. That's kind of like all there is, you know, the most effective way to stop unions is to just make every single, like, stop education and learning about the history of labor in this country for the past like 40 years, so that no kids understand any of it. Just basically instill fear at the, you know, within your coworker at the thought of, you know, them being singled out and fired immediately for trying to do any of this. Like all of that is by design. The fear you feel, it's not because it's, you know, the wrong direction to go. It's 100% a way to stop that first step being taken.
We have a round of applause for this panel. I quickly left a job working in the nonprofit sector for fire service because it had a union and it had much better worker protections. And sort of I reaped the benefits of people that struggled, you know, generations ago to have that. And in my lifetime, I've not seen anything like what y'all are doing. So I think it is scary, and I think y'all are very brave, and it really is gonna make a difference for much more than just the people that work at y'all's workplaces. It's a much bigger thing, so that's why we're here to support this and to throw in there. So sort of in conclusion, we really appreciate the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers for making the space available to us to do this. Who else are we thankful to? No one can leave. We're gonna have a discussion afterwards because we have a cake, and no one can leave until they have some cake. Is there any? I thank myself for, and so if you're a service worker, contact Service Workers United. If you're a Houston person interested in supporting the labor movement, DSA has a labor working group. We'd love to have your help. And I think that's it. So thanks everybody for being here and eating cake with us.
All right.
So cake at the table. And we can talk. I feel like it's a very abrupt, weird transition. Are we done with the Zoom?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Are we?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Really? Oh, no. It was really easy because my logo.